Hi, my name is Jerry Marcus from the law offices of Gerald Marcus. I'd like to tell you a little bit about my background and experience and how I got to this point practicing personal injury law. Approximately 30 years ago, I went to work for a law firm that specialized in personal injury. I had absolutely no experience at that point in personal injury or investigations or insurance claims or anything like that. But I saw that this firm really helped people. They represented innocent injured victims, people just like you and me that couldn't afford an attorney necessarily, but they needed good, aggressive, proper representation. This was a law firm in the San Fernando Valley, and I learned from them the basics about personal injury. Originally, I was their in-house investigator, and I worked immediately below a private investigator, and I was trained to meet with prospective clients, to analyze their case, to get out in the field and photograph scenes, interview witnesses, and really listen to what happened to figure out whether or not they had a case. I loved that because I wasn't sitting behind a desk all day. I wasn't on the phones all day, but I was really dealing with these people. And I learned that a lot of times when you talk to people over the telephone and they tell you what happened, you tend to cut them off and not really hear the whole story. But when you're with them and you see them and you ask them to write a diagram or draw a map or show you the damage or their injury, it just had a lot more meaning for me. I worked for that law firm for about 5 years, and while I was working for them, I decided I wanted to be a lawyer. I went to law school at night while I worked for them full-time. I went to Ventura College of Law, and which is ordinarily a 4-year night program, but I accelerated that and did it in 3.5 years while I worked for them as their lead private investigator took 3.5 years law school, worked for them for 5 years. When I finished working for them, I took the bar, and I knew that I was going to be a personal injury lawyer. I knew that I wasn't going to go to work for a big law firm. I wasn't going to practice corporate law. I had no interest in wearing a suit every day and meeting with corporate executives. I really wanted to represent people and fight for the little guy. So I opened up my own law firm, and that was in 1986. And since then, I've limited my practice to representing plaintiffs, and that's the innocent victim in a personal injury case. Since then, I've represented more than 7,500 clients. We've tried probably more than 30 jury trials, which is rare nowadays. You don't have a lot of plaintiff personal injury attorneys actually going all the way to trial and fighting for their client and really taking the chance of getting nothing or getting a small part of what an offer might have been. But my feeling was, if an insurance company isn't compensating this innocent injured victim that I fought for all these years to the extent that I thought they were entitled to be compensated, then you have to let a jury decide. And also it gave me a great deal of experience in the courtroom to really see what not only judges do, but what people do, what juries do. In addition, I've probably arbitrated more than 400 cases and mediated probably more than 600 cases. The most important thing, though, is I've been successful in settling or resolving probably 95% of all the cases that I've handled on behalf of my clients to my client's satisfaction. I think what makes me a little bit unique, a little different compared to any other personal injury attorney, and we all know there's a lot of personal injury attorneys out there, is that my experience is in doing the investigations. In my first 5 years, from 1980 to 85, I was actually out there dealing with the people and with witnesses, with police officers, photographing scenes, dealing with insurance claims representatives on a daily basis, and not acting like a lawyer and not arguing to them, but just fact finding and developing the case and really sifting through the evidence to develop a case, to find out if we have a strong case, a weak case, if there's a comparative negligence situation, and really to develop that case and then more or less hand it to the attorneys that were handling the case on a silver platter, so that those attorneys would take the information in the investigation that I prepared and more or less write a demand letter and negotiate the settlement. And they wound up looking like the hero because they delivered the result and they were the attorney. The reason why I think my experience was so important is I look at every client in every case that comes in my door, everybody that calls me, as an investigator first. What do I need to develop the case? I've got 2 licensed private investigators that work for me exclusively now, and they've been with me for more than 10 years, and I've trained them the same way that I was trained, so that when I interview a client or my investigators interview a client, we're doing it to develop the case so that we can get that case settled as quickly as possible and for as much compensation as possible based on all the evidence. So there's no surprises down the road. And another important part of that is a lot of times an attorney will take a case, not having that experience in real, on the street investigations, and they'll sign up a client, they'll send out a few letters, and then they don't do anything on the case. The case sits and gathers dust for 3 months or 6 months, and they eventually get some medical records and medical reports, and they send a letter to the insurance company, and 6 or 9 months later, for the first time, the insurance company is telling them, hey, you don't have a case here, or we're denying the claim, or we're disputing the claim. And at that point, the attorney would either drop the case or withdraw as an attorney, or they would have to file a lawsuit and start the formal litigation process where they're first really investigating the claim 9 months or a year later in a formal way. Whereas the way that I approach the case is to get that investigation done right out of the gates, and ideally within the first 30 days of every single case, it's investigated so that we've verified all the insurance coverage, we've analyzed legal liability, we obtained the police reports, seen photographs, witness statements, and we know what the case is. And then we're really just focusing on the damages part of the case, which is our clients' injuries and making sure that they're seeing the right doctors, they're getting better, they're seeing the right specialists, so that 3 or 4 or 5 months down the road, in most cases, when the medical records and reports come into my office, everything is locked up, it's ready to go. And when I do a demand, 95% of the time, I know that case is going to settle within 30 or 60 days. There's no surprises for me. On the other hand, if I know there's a tough issue there and I do a demand and it's not going to settle, I'm prepared to litigate that case because I've already done the investigation, so there won't be any surprises a year down the road. I know what to expect. Call me so that I can evaluate your case.